Good morning and welcome to the Rewind Show. Hashtag 52, I believe we're on. And you've got myself here in Yorkshire and Brent Peters over there at the sports bar in Bacup. How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, pal. How are you?
Yeah, a little bit busy at the moment, but I know that you're busy as well. We're all busy, aren't we? It all hands to the pump. It's busy out of season. But then it starts to get rather busy when we get into the football season.
Well, with me, it's not just like any other manager, just concentrating on the team. I've got to concentrate on the club, all aspects of the club. I'm here kind of out there on the ground on my own, so I've got to do jobs. It's like in between, like now we're getting sunshine and then we're getting rain. So if I want to do something on the pitch, I've got to try and do it in between the rain and sunshine, if you follow me. There's certain things you can't do when it's been raining. And then I've got to do the administration, and you know what the North West Counties League are like. Thinking, heck, I'm not being funny. The amount of emails that start to come through, it's frightening. As Campion will tell you. I think they had a coach. I think they had a culture shock when they joined this league. But yeah, you know what? And then on top of that, I've got a business to run. And that's not been easy just recently. When you get a blinking time waster that you give him a job, and then he's done it for a week. And obviously, you know what it's like at the beginning when you're trying to train. And it's hard at the minute because they're having to train actually doing the job. They're kind of thrown in at the deep end because of holidays. They're like, when drivers are taking holidays, they've got to do the job. In an ideal world, you with the likes of Kyle, who plays for Aussie, Kyle Siddall, he spent quite a few weeks just riding shotgun, learning everything with our Martin.
And that's probably the best way to learn, Brent. But a lot of people out there, we all think, white van man, it's an easy job. But it's not, is it? It's demanding. Easy. It's quite demanding.
It's demanding, but you've got to know where you're going, and and you can't be passing the time of day with some with people who are receiving the parcels. You've got to go get your signature quick, and then off to the next one. That's how it is. And some people are, take it like duck to water. Some people don't. They can't. They just can't handle it. And when you get a phone call at 5:30 on a Monday morning, why he couldn't have rang on Sunday and give you half a chance, but 5:30, it's not for me, I'm not coming in. Well, that just thinking absolute blows a gaff with me, because that just put us in a lot of work. When that happens, it not only puts my lads under pressure, but it puts me under pressure on top of what I've got here. But listen, it's part and parcel of what goes on. So I've just got to get on with it. Like you say, I'll always look on the bright side of life. But I can't do with time wasters. I can't do with. There's not many things I can't do with, but one thing I can't do with. I can't do with negative people. I can't do with time wasters, and I can't do with people that are two-faced.
There's quite a few of them.
That's why I say it as it is, me. At least you know where you stand with me. If you don't like me, I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
I'll tell you as it is. Oh, that's it.
And that's probably why you attract the right people then, Brent, because people who don't like you talking straight to them will disappear.
Well, that's right. Like I said, people, you should always know where you stand with people. And I just can't do with people that'll be all right to your face and then do things and say things behind your back. Just be upfront. If I don't like somebody, I'm not afraid to tell them, look, I don't like what you're about. I don't like you, and let's move on. That's how it's got to be. You call a spade, and you say it as it is. Everybody knows where they stand.
Exactly.
Simple.
Let's look at the football, because as on the rewind, it's all about catching up, rewinding back to the game, and then also looking forward to the next game and whatever else comes up in between. First game of the season at home to the new boys, Euxton Villa. We always knew it was going to be difficult for several reasons. Firstly, they're the new boys. They wanted to get off to a flyer. They had, something to prove, almost like a cup final experience for them. And then secondly, injuries, suspensions, Club Tropicana holidays have been our Achilles heel, and we knew it was going to be difficult, Brent, and it was.
Well, you can only listen. The next few games are going to be difficult. We know that. We knew that. It's no shock to me, but that doesn't mean to say we've got to sit here and kind of rest on our laurels. You've got to find that little bit of spark somewhere that'll kick you off and kick your season off. That's that's something that me and my support staff have been working on. That's how it's got to be. In an ideal world, when we touched on it last week on the show. In an ideal world, when you're coming back to pre-season's already booked, but you're not aware of when people are taking holidays, and you're not aware about gobshites up in Yorkshire that start to open their mouth on and put a report in on a website, acting behind a keyboard warrior, I call them, and accusing people of doing something that probably goes on, or saying something that probably goes on at every football match throughout the country. Yeah. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it is another matter. But why get involved in? This is what I mean about people getting involved in somebody else's business. He wasn't even involved in it, but it's created a problem for us, because straight away that player in question is a top player, and he's out for 6 matches. So that only compounds the situation in terms of the players that have taken their holidays, and the players who are still carrying injuries over from kind of last season. So we knew it was going to be difficult. We went into the game. We've had 4 pre-season games. We've had to spend, ideally, we'd like to have gone into them pre-season games with the team and the squad that played last season, because that's all work in progress. Everybody knows the roles and responsibilities, and it's just a case of fine-tuning things. Unfortunately, that's not been able to happen, and we've had to run with a lot of the new lads that have come into the club. But the new lads that have come into the club, whilst I'm not saying that they're not ready for the first team, I think in a very quick time they will be. There's some talented lads here, and I mean talented lads. But as you know as well as I know, in football, you've got to get these talented lads working within the team structure that you've been developing. Yeah. And kind of that's what we've tried to do during the pre-season. And then when it comes to the first match of the season, when you look at the team that started and or the players that were available, we'd only 50% of the players available that were from our squad from last season. 50%. So the other 50% are being made up of lads that are new to the club. Not only are they new to the club, they're new to the methods and how we want how we want it in our team set up, what we've worked hard for the last 3 years.
And new to the league as well, Brent. New to the league.
Yeah, that's a good point. New to the league. So consequently, but we can't get games out called off. We have to start when we start, whether we like it or we don't like it. We've got to go into these games with these players, and we've got to try and hope that they pick the baton up and kind of run with it and understand the roles and responsibilities. Now, if we go back to how do I break this down? First and foremost, just to put things right out there for those that were questioning why a certain player didn't start the season, that finished the season last season. Right? Now, listen, for those that's questioned that, right? First and foremost, I think you're bang out of order. I think they're a bit bang out of order in terms of judging the lad that was put in, and I'll talk about it. The lad that was put in at right back, I think they were bang out of order by judging him on kind of a 90-minute game of football, because there were things happened in that game, in a 90-minute game of football, that he was let down badly by, in my opinion, by his teammates. And I'll come to that in a minute, right, when we get into the nitty-gritty of it. But also, what supporters have got to understand when they're out there, listen, the player in question, I had no hesitation last season, at end of last season. We had probably our two biggest games of the season came against Avro in the Cup and Congleton in the Cup. As you know, we great game against Avro. Could have gone either way, and we win the game 1-0 at last kick of the game, basically. Could have gone either way. And then we go down to Congleton and only lose that on a slight one goal situation. And we've gone about, it's been well documented. I left an experienced right fullback out for those two games, not because the experienced right fullback was struggling in games and not doing his job. It was because he was missing vital training sessions when we wanted to work on things.
Yeah.
And the lad who was playing in the under-23s, which was Lewis Hewitt, was doing extremely well in the under-23. So I had no hesitation because that's the kind of way I work. If he can't make training when it's a vital training session before a vital game in the season, which were against Avro, then I certainly, have to look at, should he be playing in that game against Avro? And my decision at that particular time was, no, he shouldn't, because we've got a lad coming through from the under-23s who's been pushing up trees and doing well. So I were quite prepared and happy to throw young Lewis Hewitt into
but I suppose, Brent, I was going to say, I suppose that's the beauty at Borough, where we have that pathway where people and players are going to get the opportunity to play.
Yeah, exactly. We myself and Dave, we take an interest in the 23s and the 21s. A strong interest in them.
Yeah.
And we'd monitored him, and he'd done really, really well. So he got his chance, and he came in against Avro, and he did well against Avro. And he came in against Congleton and kept his place against Congleton.
Yeah.
And he did well again against Congleton. So, but in football, and I say it all the time, in terms of what's gone last season and the players that played well last season and were on it last season and looking good and sharp last season, don't necessarily start the season like they finish the season. Yeah. It happens. Some players can have really good seasons, and then the season after they could have disappointing seasons for one reason or another. And in terms of, we can only go off what we see in pre-season. Now, in pre-season, I know it's been difficult again because we've had, the experienced lads, or the lads that's been around us for a few seasons, weren't available. So we've had to run with the games in pre-season with players that kind of finding the feet. And because we've run with, we're kind of looking at a situation that's not 100% entirely correct, because, players could excel with stronger or more experienced players playing with them, but when we went up to Penistone Church, that was going to be our yardstick on our first match of the season. We were going to be able to, that was the game that that really speaking, we'd want to look at, and you'd think that was probably going to be the team that would start the season if they were on it and did well. But as you know, we went to.
I suppose a lot of sides, Brent, they. I know you mentioned this before, but usually the last game or the last game of pre-season is usually when you start to get your chess pieces in place. So to
exactly.
Ready for the new kickoff.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is usually you think that the opposition, because they were starting the same time as we're starting, they'd be as strong as they could be. And they were as strong as they could be. And we were as strong as we could be. We hadn't left you know, we did leave. Obviously, Brad Hancock were on the bench, but Brad Hancock were on the bench for a reason, because we knew we wouldn't be starting the season because he were going away. You know, Carl Siddall was on the bench, but we knew Carl Siddall, once the season started, because of the gobshite up in Yorkshire, you know, we knew we were going to lose him for 6 games. So the situation is that he started on the bench. So, but apart from that, you know, we were as strong as we could be. And in that game, everybody's got, again, I keep saying it, all the positions within the team, everybody's got roles and responsibility. And the way that we've set up and had an identity for the last few seasons, you look at certain scenarios, and when ball gets put into a certain area, you're looking for certain players to be in that area. And when players who should be in the area aren't in the area, you're scratching your head and thinking, why they're not in that area? And this brings me to the situation where we kind of Lewis is playing at right back. The best way I can describe this, if you go down to the, I'll just mention the, you know, in your terms, it'll be the M65, but in our terms, it's the M66.
Yeah.
If you go down to the M66, the best way I could describe this, if you go to the M66 and it's a 3-way motorway, and you go down at say 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you know, the chances are them lanes are going to be empty.
Yeah.
They're going to be quiet and they're going to be empty. You follow me?
Yeah.
So basically, if we think about the right fullback that's got a channel to play in, and when his channel's empty, but the ball's in an high position in the final third of the pitch, and your right fullback is not entering that channel and showing himself to go and support, to be receiving the ball higher up the pitch and being another body high up the pitch, then you've got to question, why is that happening? You know, why? Is it because is he carrying a slight knock? Is it because he just don't feel fit enough?
Yeah.
Or is it because he's like a rabbit in the headlights, and he's kind of overawed with the occasion and kind of doesn't want to go in, and he's kind of hiding.
Scared of what the opponent is going to do if he goes on the attack.
Exactly. So I don't know the answers to them questions. I can only go off what I can see, and what you can see, and what Dave can see, what everybody else can see. So when he's not upholding his responsibilities in his roles and responsibility, and it's kind of happened in a couple of pre-season games where he's not been on the front foot when he should be on the front foot, then his position becomes questionable. So what happened were, you know, we played that game, and like I've just said to you, when it was on to go up that channel, and it was on several times in that first 45 minutes, we were disjointed as a team, because the option were, when any midfield player opened up and tried to look out to the channel, the person in question wasn't there. He was behind. So as a management team, we've got to look at that. We don't know the reasons. So because of all it is and one thing and another, we've had good reports about young Ben Langley. Good reports. Now, in the pre-season games, unfortunately, he hasn't had much game time, and the reason why, but the game time that he did get, he got this game time, but he can also play. Ben can also play in midfield. So because we had kind of, I think it was, we were looking at four right backs. You know, four doesn't go into one. It doesn't go in. So we've got to look at it, and we had to put. So there were other right backs we needed to look at. So there was a kid that had come from Halifax that we needed to look at, because he come with good reports. So we put the kid in from Halifax, who again let himself down on the day. He as you know, he was kind of out of his depth. Yeah. But we put him in. We had a look at him. So Ben had to play in midfield, and to be fair to Ben, he did all right in midfield.
Did okay.
But we'd had good reports. Now, he then went away on holiday. So he was away for a couple of weeks. So the only time that we can look at him now at right back, unfortunately, is because the season started. He's in games during the season. We can't do anything else. We can watch him in under 23s. They've not started yet. So we can't watch him in there. So because our right back who finished the season last season was kind of a young lad, and although that don't forget I were the person that gave him his chance, and I'm the person that put him in there. You know, I'm the same person that will also question when he's not doing his upholding his roles and responsibilities. So consequently, it was decided that I put him in at right back, and we have a look at him at right back. Because so in terms of what I was concerned about at Penistone Church, to be fair to Ben, he actually did do what Lewis didn't do. He was going forward, and he was linking up, and he was trying to support. The issue with Ben was and why I think that it was questioned, that decision, because as you saw because it was where they were kicking in the first half, were kicking towards the clubhouse.
Yeah, they're on my side.
It was on your side. Jimmy Petruzzi always stands at that side, so he's analysing from that side as well. We didn't have a clear view from the side we were at, because we've got to go through bodies from where we are in the technical area. So it wasn't always on to see what was actually going on there. And it was only after we went through analytics after the game, and obviously speaking to yourself and then obviously with Jimmy and the information we had, it was quite evident that that Ben wasn't being given any support in terms of he was getting 2v1 quite a bit. And it was that situation that actually led to their first goal, which was disappointing from our part, which was a tapping at the opposite end. Now, in terms of whereas supporters, again, won't realise this and won't realise that people can watch a game and think we're doing. I mean, I had to laugh. I mean, I read a comment on somewhere on some platform where one of our supporters were praising Euxton Villa up about their team shape, and it were nullifying the space for our lads to exploit and all that. I thought, well, what are you looking at? Because that was a load of rubbish. You know, they were playing a simple formation. They had 5-man midfield, right? They had 2 men up front. We know how to deal with that. If we had had the team last season that were playing against, that played more or less every game last season. So in other words, what I'm saying is, had Kyle Siddall have been playing, and had say Anthony Hall have been on from the start, you know, I'm telling you now that situation where getting doubled up would never have happened. Never ever in a month of Sundays would have happened, because the way that we set up in such a way that our 2 fullbacks against that shape that they had would be free.
Yeah,
and there's a reason for that. I'm not going to spell it out on here because I'm not going to start giving too much away. But our 2 fullbacks would be spare, right? There's no 2 ways this but to maybes. So what tells me is that some players were upholding the roles and responsibilities. For instance, you know, if their left back is getting forward and he's going against our right back, then that tells me that our right-sided forward is not doing his job.
He's not tracking back.
And if that happens on the opposite side, it's the same principle. They're not tracking back. So that becomes a major concern, because they know that is their roles and responsibility. They have to do it. And that's within whether other people, whether fans on the sideline think it shouldn't be happening, but that's the way that we had our kind of good run of results all last season and the season before.
But that's what was happening with young Ben.
That was exactly what was happening.
He was being pulled out towards the fullback, and the fullback were just doing a simple 1-2 down that left-hand side and getting the ball into the box.
Well, there's another area that I touched on at half time, and I didn't realize this is obviously what was happening as well. And I have to question So we come back to the midfield, and one thing I said at half time, and I'm not singling individuals out here, but because we're a team, you know, we've got good quality players in there, and when we're going forward, we are a threat, a real threat, as you know. And the trouble is, we're that much of a threat that sometimes we go forward and we've got honest lads in there, and they go forward, but there's no discipline. They're leaving kind of big gaps if we lose possession. So there's areas, there's areas where the opposition can run into and create problems for our back lads, our defenders. Now then, one of the things that I picked up on at half time was the midfield. You're going, don't get caught higher than the ball, don't get caught up the field, because what's happening is, as soon as we lose possession, they were breaking, they were knocking the ball forward and then running, chasing, going for it. Yeah. So if you can think about that situation, our midfield are then chasing with them, but it become a mismatch in the running. So in other words, if you think about, take the ball away and it were a race between, so if you said you're having a race, so if you had a race between their three midfield players that were at edge of their box, and our three midfield players that were at edge of their box, and decided to have a run to get to edge of our box, our midfield players were getting beat in the race. They were quicker, faster than us. So it became a mismatch in terms of the running. So that's why I said at half time, don't get caught, you stay in them areas. So basically you're behind the ball all the time. So that can't happen. So if the opposition will just run onto you, basically, right? So that situation can't happen because it's a mismatch in running. So what happened were, right? As more we've looked at the analytics, what's happened when they're breaking on us, the midfield player, one of the midfield players, was making his run because obviously he's left his marker, our midfield player, but he's making his run towards our fullback. But because he was left by our midfield player who should be tracking him, but because he were quicker than the lad who's tracking him, I'm not saying the lad weren't trying to track him, he were trying to track him, but he couldn't track him, he weren't quick enough. But the run he was making was towards our fullback, and that's how he become 2v1, because he was against a midfield player and a fullback. But the fullback should have been tracked by a striker, wide player, and the midfield player should have been tracked by a midfield player. So that's something that obviously we've worked on since, you know, and we've had a look at. But what I'm trying to tell you is the reason why it looked like, and why the poor lad was getting...
He got a short straw, did Ben, didn't he?
He got a short straw. And so that meant that the fans behind the goals was asking questions then. Why is he not started with Lewis? Why is he not started with Lewis? Well, you know, the benefit of these shows, whether they agree with me or they don't agree with me.
This is what it's all about.
You know, this goes back to the argument that we've been having over a few days. You know, with these talk, I think clubs should be more kind of open and come out so spectators know what's going on. Whether they agree, it's not about whether they agree or not. We're not bothered about them whether they agree. There's only one man or two men or a group of people that can make them decisions, which is the manager, and his support staff.
But if you had shows like this and the transparency to be able to rewind, not get a manager straight after a game, because you're never going to get the answers straight after a game of football. You've got to wait a couple of days, give it time to digest, and then you have a show like this, be transparent, which then it takes away all doubt completely.
Oh, that's it. That's 100%. And I go back to, I mean, I know that you put this post up about or voice for the fan, and I've kind of hit the roof about things, because I'll tell you for why. And I'm talking about all through. I know we're digressing from what happened on Saturday here, but I'm going to touch on it. Right, the simple fact, I've always said, and I've been in part of this. Listen, I can tell you some tales here, right? Good tales, but they're not nice tales. Let me tell you, not nice. right?
Yeah.
And this is a family show, so but I can tell you certain things, right? Let's talk sport. That program for me, I call it talk shite, right? Because that's all they do. They talk shite, and what they do, they're employed. I'm sure that the producers.
Well, it's owned by the Sun, so there you go.
Well, that tells you everything. They've got it in, and they've got to be controversial. So they get people in, and then they're wanting phone calls. But do you know what?
The fishing rod out.
Exactly, but it got poison. It gets poisonous, and it gets volatile, and it gets vindictive, and it gets vicious and toxic. I mean, you only have to listen to Steve Bruce and his time up at Newcastle and everything.
Yeah,
and what's that? And you've got to understand that these managers are human beings. They've got families. The young kids and the grandkids have got to go to school. And people are at it, your dad's this, your granddad's that, your granddad. They're vindictive. It's horrible. But then you've got radio shows that like that talk shite, that are freaking putting stuff like that out.
Fuel on the fire.
Putting through, and they're not reasoning in. They're not going either way. And well, could this be happening? Could that be happening? And they're not even getting Steve Bruce on the show to like put his points of view over. It's just toxic. So then what you get all these freaking empty heads that just picking a phone. You can't see them, but they're probably keyboard warriors and empty heads going on, chatting absolute shite.
But there's nothing, as you said, there's nothing constructive about it. There's no difference of opinion. It's just one-way traffic, and it's just abuse.
It's abuse, and then I think, even when, back in the day when I think they're phasing out a little bit now, but back in the day, like Radio Lancashire did it, where I don't know if they still do it, but after a game, we'd like to hear from the Blackpool supporters, and we'd like to hear from the Preston supporters, and we'd like to hear from everybody's the next manager. Everybody's
the next Arsene Wenger.
Arsene Wenger, and they're going on, and you just listen to them coming back from games, and you think, wow, what a blinking absolute load of crap. So let me tell you something, right? These people who are going on these shows, they haven't got I've just told you a good reason why we did that situation with a player that we think highly of, that we give his chance last season, right? And we've put him in the team, but why we've also taken him out the team. Because obviously he was failing on his...
But a lot of clubs don't work this way, Brent. People will be watching this morning, hopefully. There'll be quite a few people watching it now, watching it later, and they're going to think it's a breath of fresh air. But that's only because the person I'm talking to is straightforward. A spade's a spade, and whether you like it or not, you're going to get the truth. But not every football club and not every person involved in football are transparent and talk the way that you talk.
No, I think that's where clubs let themselves down, me, because I think if the clubs were more transparent and came out,
it would stop all the bullshit.
It would stop it. Not everybody will always agree. You never always agreeing, because that will never happen, right? But what it will stop it all, and people, they'll understand why certain situations. I mean, I'm even seeing things that's going on now with Ten Hag, with Ronaldo. I mean, the things that Ronaldo's done. I mean, he's having a go at him about Ronaldo leaving the stadium. He played last week 45 minutes, and then he's left at half time. That wouldn't even go on. I mean, they tried to do it at non-league level. They tried to do it at my club, but I'll tell you what, they'll be dragged over the coals. They shouldn't be leaving at half time. Yeah. And he's going mad about it. Now, what I'm saying is, if he didn't come out on his interviews and say what's gone on and why, and it can't happen and that shouldn't be happening, then all the people who love Ronaldo all start thinking, well, he's got a point there. It shouldn't be happening, which it shouldn't. It sends the wrong vibes, sends the wrong message.
Do you think, Brent, sometimes that, I know that you will protect your players 110%, but there's times where you've got to kind of question yourself and think, hold on, I can only defend a player so much because it's making me look stupid.
Well, that's right. And like, even where we are, we've had certain issues over the last couple of seasons with certain players. Not many, probably two, if I had to be honest.
But more often than not, you defend them to the hilt.
I'll defend them. I won't come on here and slaughter them. And if I've got to do anything about it, it'll be done behind closed doors. And it's whether they smell the coffee and they accept it. If they don't accept it, I'm sorry, it has to go. I received an email over an incident that happened on Saturday. And again, this is. I didn't have to answer that email. I'm absolutely mad busy. I answered the email. There was nothing wrong with the email. He were kind of concerned with the supporter in question. Yeah. He witnessed everything that had gone on. He even said in the email that the player were totally out of order and it can't happen. But equally, in his words, he was trying to find my weak spot. He said, "Well, let me tell you, in certain situations, I ain't got a weak spot.
No,
there's certain situations I haven't got a weak spot. Believe me, right?" And he was kind of trying to find my weak spot, because he was trying to it weren't an incident that involved me, but it was an incident that involved one of my staff, and I've got to be seen to do what's right with my staff, or else I won't be doing my job right.
Yeah, who's going to be running the asylum if no one's taking control?
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of sat down and I wrote an email back, and whilst I didn't go in and I even started the email and said, "I'm not going to go on here in this email and start telling you what goes on behind closed doors of a changing room, because it's basically that's where it stops. What goes on in a changing room stays in a changing room and shouldn't be coming out of a changing room. It should be that's it. That's where it starts and ends." Yeah. So I never went into anything that happens on a changing room, but then I went on about incidents that had occurred with this certain player over time since he's been brought into the first team arena. And it doesn't make good reading. And to be honest, as good a player he is, if I were to show him the door, I know some clubs might take him, but they won't last 2 minutes with him, because at the end of the day, clubs do the due diligence, and they're not going to put up or want something like what's gone on around, because it's bad enough and hard enough being a manager. It's a result. We're trying to get your results, trying to get your chemistry right, get your balance right, without some child, trying to think he's better than what he is and trying to run the roost and belittle the management and things like that. And it just can't happen, and it won't happen. And I'm the people I've been brought up with from a very young age in management, I've been taught that doesn't happen. Yeah. So when that incident happened on obvious that the player in question was going to be the curly finger. It had to be. But I went through all the issues we've had with him, and then he kind of and said, "Listen, I'm not here." Basically, I put on and I finished my email by saying, "I'm not here to defend the undefendable. I'm not here to defend the undefendable, because I can't defend him. There's a lot of things gone on, and he needs to grow up and smell the coffee. He's an excellent footballer, but even then, even in his football, if I had to stand on this show now and tell you the amount of goals that he has cost us, it's frightening in games. I mean, one game in particular last season, he did a pirouette. He got moved to centre midfield, did a pirouette. We were winning the game. First match of the season against Cleator Moor, winning the game 2-1. He does a pirouette in centre of midfield after he'd been moved there, and he loses the ball. They go up the other end and they equalise. So from in a winning position, we end up drawing the game. Yeah. But he doesn't see that, But when other people do it, or we're not playing the football that he kind of wants, or wants to show, he loses his discipline. He'll start ragging other people about and having to go at other people. People should just look at themselves.
I think the beauty is, though, Brett, I think the beauty of what we're talking about is the fact, we talked about transparency in football, and you didn't have to reply to the email, but we're a club which likes to interact with its supporters. So I know I've seen the email, and it was an excellent email, and hopefully those points were addressed what the supporter was asking.
Well, yeah, I like to think so. And listen, I'm not a person to shirk. If I get an email, I show respect. If somebody has taken the time, as long as it's genuine, to write an email, I'll give them a genuine response back, and I'll give them that time. And that's what I did. But we've got to be very careful in football and in general. I mean, I can take you back. This is what I mean again. where these shows and these message boards, they can be, when you first came here, one of the things that I said to you, if you look at our website and you looked at our website, we didn't have a message board, right?
No.
And one of the reasons that I said it's not going to happen, right? Because I seen what happened at Ramsbottom. Now, I felt sorry for the chairman at Ramsbottom at the time. Because, Harry Williams is obviously he's knocking on now. And what a truly remarkable guy Harry Williams is, the chairman of Ramsbottom. And there's Harry Williams at Ramsbottom, the chairman, and there's also, I can't remember his name, there's another guy that's knocking on a bit. That they're there every day, they're putting divots back on the ground, they're doing everything.
Unsung heroes of football.
Unsung heroes, they're doing everything down there, absolutely everything. And after they'd had the successful period with Bernard and Jono, and what happens is, as more and more you get successful, more and more people start to come on into your group and follow you, and think they have a divine right because they follow you to have an opinion and say how the club should be run and everything. And they're not even true supporters, really. They're just people that jumped on the bandwagon because they're doing well. And because certain decisions were made down at Ramsbottom, following when after Bernard and Jono had gone, there were certain, and probably, and when I found out about it, it turns out it wasn't. If you read the post that kept coming up on Ramsbottom's message board, if you read it, it sounded like there was a group of people. It sounded like a group of people was ganging up on Harry Williams, right? Now, from an outsider looking in.
So if you're a little bit cynical, it's almost verging on a witch hunt.
Yeah, witch hunt. Yeah, and it was ridiculous. And it was a group of people. But then more and more that I kind of spoke to people down at Ramsbottom and said that it's bang out of order what's going on that message board and everything. It came out that it was only one person that he kept putting same posts but different names, using different names, but it looked like there was a collective.
Different account.
But it wasn't. It's one person. It's the same person. So the one person has an agenda, but for you as an outsider looking at that message board,
you're thinking it's 10, 15, 20
people. 20 people all wanting Harry out. He shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be doing that. That shouldn't be happening. And it's one person. I'm thinking that's just degrading the club.
Doesn't that show you how easy it is to manipulate and have propaganda against an institution or an establishment?
Exactly. And it can't happen. It's ridiculous and it's wrong. And then I'll give you another instance, like even as daft as yesterday, because you put that, obviously you put on Bake-Up Borough saying about a voice for the fans and all that advert.
That kind of worried you a little bit.
Well, it didn't worry me. I just said straight that won't be happening unless it's freaking controlled, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. But what happened were, right, I answered a tweet. You put something up on your own account, and you're answering somebody at what the guy called it.
It was they're a good
Norwood or something. Somebody called Norwood. He was called, and the reason why the name's
Talk BFC. It's
Talk BFC. Yeah. So I jumped on it and said I disagreed with something. It was nothing to do with Bake-Up Borough. I just said I disagreed with it because this is what we're talking about now. Yeah. So again, it must be something in the Yorkshire air. Whether it's the Yorkshire tea or not, I don't know. But let me tell you, right? I have nothing against Yorkshire people, by the way. When I say this, nothing at all. In fact, I think the Yorkshire, I love to have conversation because straight Yorkshiremen are great. You get
Listen,
me?
I'm a Lancastrian living in York. That's all.
No, not you. Listen to what I'm coming to. I'm on about what I have to say now.
Okay.
So this guy's I've seen. So this guy trying to be clever. Billy No Mates, I'm going to call him. Billy No Mates. The reason why I'm saying Billy No Mates.
How many followers has he got?
Zero. He had zero followers.
That's a new account then, isn't it? That's someone who's set a new account up.
So it's Billy No Mates, and I think it said at Steve Whip. You can find him at Steve Whip. And his title is, well, this tells you everything you need to know if you read it right.
Go on then. Go on.
Yorkshire to act. Number two, HAT.
But say it quick enough.
You get me? You follow me?
I get you.
So this guy has seen that me put on having a discussion, which is a good discussion between you and our friend who runs this Burnley FC Norwood.
It was a good discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of my comment this was my comment. So what you're telling me is, I'm saying in that discussion, some people can't run their lives right, can't run their home right. Some have never done anything other than tap into government funds to live, never worked in a business, never mind run one, but you will give them a platform to try and tell successful people on how to run their business. Sad. Hashtag sad. I put. So this troublemaker, I'm calling, another gobshite from up in Yorkshire, another one, right, has turned round, he's cut all the conversation off, so he only has that post, and he's tagged in B&M because they sponsor us, because obviously B&M are being a store that's for under, probably bargains for people like that don't have a lot of money or whatever. So he's like tried to create a problem with B&M. Do you get me? And this is what I'm saying. These people are dangerous. It's ridiculous. But if you read if you left the conversation there and read the conversation, it kind of has justification.
They're absolutely everywhere. But the thing is, if that's the case, I haven't seen that. But if he's gone to all that time and effort to set up a new account and then separate the conversation and then tag in B&M, it just tells you that he's got a vendetta against Birketborough Football Club.
Well, he didn't. He really had a vendetta about what I said in that conversation, because obviously it's aimed at. But he's taking it all out of context, because all I was saying is,
well, they often do. People who have an agenda often do take it out of context.
I can give you another situation, right? I'll give you another one. Back in 1990, right? So going back to 1990, Rosendale United, our reserve team manager at Rosendale United Reserves. The first team manager's job came up, and at that point, I actually eventually got it in 1993. But in 1990, I didn't get the job. They decided to bring in an outsider, right? They didn't want to appoint within, right? Yeah. So I didn't get the job. So I made it quite clear, if I didn't get the job, I was leaving. So what happened were, I got offered the Skelmersdale job and Glossop North End, and I decided to take the Glossop North End. When I went to Glossop, majority, if not all, the first team players followed me. The only player that didn't follow me was Paul Beck. Went to Accrington Stanley, who was the main striker. Yeah. He went to Accrington Stanley. Johnny Parrott were kind of the goalkeeper, and he kind of stayed more local. I think Aslington were in the league then, so he played at Aslington, right? But the rest of the lads, like Wayne Howarth, which is Rowan's dad and everything, they all followed me to Glossop. Yeah. Simon Holding was my assistant. He was to Glossop. My dad was very close to Rosendale United at the time, right? And obviously we played, but every match programme of Rosendale United while we was at Glossop, you'd have thought it was Glossop's programme. Rosendale United's programme, because the two editors of Rosendale United's programme was and they were allowed to do this, was writing the programme, but it was all about what were going on at Glossop, because they're ex-Rosendale players. But what they were doing is kind of taking the Pilsner out of them, like trying to belittle them, and the players, and not just management, but the players. Belittle them.
It ended up being quite degrading then towards Rosendale United players, even though they weren't playing at Rosendale, they were down the road at Glossop.
Yeah, exactly. So then in 93, this is where it happened. So in 93, I can't mention no names because this is really where it gets. This is where it gets a bit naughty.
Okay.
So in 1993, I leave my job at Bury because it was my hometown club, and take the job at Rosendale, first team manager's job at Rosendale United. If Wayne's listening to this now, he'll remember it.
Yeah.
So the very first match of the season, these two guys who was doing the program at the time were typical keyboard warriors, right? Who was like thinking. So the very first home game, I'm in the dressing room at end of the game as we played out on Dart Lane. I'm in the dressing room, and I think it was Wayne that came to me and he said, "Look at this. What have you seen this? There's a fanzine." So he's brought this fanzine in. So we've read this fanzine. So I'm having a look at it. And I mean, I must admit, I must give him a bit of credit. It were quite, it were quite funny. It were funny, but it were kind of naughty, but it were funny, right? So there were balloons, like balloon characters, and they were trying to make
voice stuff.
Yeah. But what they were doing, they were kind of taking the Pilsner out of, because the Rosendale players that had left in 1990, I brought a lot of them back in 93. So they came back. So there was also, obviously, there's still that bad blood, if you know, because they knew they were Rosendale-based lads. So they all knew that Rosendale United's programme were being featured every game of taking the Pilsner out of the Glossop lads.
To the players who had come back. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 93, when we go back, this fanzine, so I'm going, linking it, you know, it's funny, is this? It's like, but next thing, one of the lads, right, because when you think about it, you know what it's going to be like this first match of season. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, I don't care how good a side of it I've got together here at Rosendale. There's going to be times where we're going through a bad time. And obviously there'll be times when we're going through a good time. But the bad time, that's just going to manifest even more.
Yeah.
You follow me? It's going to manifest even more of this. So kind of consequently, I'm like thinking, it has to stop. It has to stop. So one of the players, I'm not going to obviously mention no names or anything. No, don't worry about that. They're not taking the bloody Pilsner out of me. It will stop them. They knew who they were. So the next thing is they didn't live in Rosendale. This person that I'm going to talk about, right, didn't live in Rosendale. Right, didn't live in Rosendale. He lived down in Wythenshawe. So listen, some characters down there.
Yeah.
So he got his uncle to come up one day, and he pointed these two guys out. He said, "They're the ones that's writing this fanzine." So he says, "Right, okay." So during a game, we were playing. So they played this game, right? And all through the game, these guys have come up from Wythenshawe, and they're tight. So they're watching every movement that they made, where they were going, when they went to the pie stall to get a pie at halftime. They were in the vicinity. They watched them where they walked, right, everywhere on the ground. Anyway, the game finished, and I don't know if you can remember the old stadium. It's houses on it now.
Yeah,
but when you pulled out to Dart, when you come out to Dart Lane and you go down the road, right, there were houses set back behind grass verges. And these lads have set off to walk down there. Next thing, a car screeched up, nearly knocked them over, apparently. Jumped out, had fanzines in the thing. Honestly, pepper sprayed them or whatever it is. Give them a good. Honestly, give them a. Needless to say, there were never no fanzine written again. Right, that was the end of it. But what I'm trying to say is, it got toxic. It got really, really, really bad, and that was because. And that's what I'm saying. There's no control over these people, because at the end of the day, the keyboard works. So they're giving people a platform who are complete empty. I'm not degrading anybody. You know, every society has empty heads where, you know, if you give him a tenner, you know, like to do something, because it can go and get him a quick fix, that tenner, they'll do whatever they'll do whatever you can tell them. So it's
now it's become even easier, hasn't it? You know, like you were talking about the fanzine, where it had to be printed and distributed by hand, so you got to see who the people were. Now people are hiding behind screens, aliases, different names. Not even the person you think it is.
No, that's right. And that's why I'm saying it. And to me, I think going back to this situation, I think clubs, whether it be a non-league club, whether it be football league club, I think they should be more, because, listen, at non-league, it happens, but at a lesser level than football league.
Yeah.
Everything's still the same, but at a lesser level. So I think that if people came out like we do, listen, do I really want to be on an hour, given my workload, right?
No, you don't.
On a show like, I'll be honest with you, I don't. Even though it's, we have a bit of fun and we have a laugh, I can do it out because my day's messed up.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we have to have it on we've had this conversation loads of times, haven't we? We've got to have it on a Thursday because it fits in with what you're doing. But if we're doing it, we stick to it so everybody knows that the time and everything we're having on it. But do I really, and we can watch it back, do we really need it like a hole in the head? We need it. But I think it's massively important because I will come out here as much as I can, and I will express what's happened on a Saturday as much as I can. And there's some things I can't divulge because obviously I don't want to give too much away about our team shape, roles, responsibilities. But at least people will sit there and listen and get a feeling and think, well, I can see where they're coming from now. Well, and I'll try and explain as much as I can what they're expected to do, because everybody's in every team. I mean, for instance, let's be honest, people might ask a question and say, why so-and-so, to themselves outside, and say, I wonder why so-and-so's not playing. So let's say, for instance, they might turn around and say, why is Lewis Byrne not playing? I can't understand, why is he not picking him? But Lewis Byrne could have a tweak in his hamstring. He could have not been feeling well. He could have had issues. He could have issues at home or whatever. But unless if nobody comes out and actually says the reasons, that will manifest itself
they start jumping to their own conclusions.
They start jumping to their own conclusions, and then people will say, "Yeah, well, they're a bit of an argument here, and he's done one and all this," and it will be a million miles from the truth.
Chinese whispers, and yeah.
So basically that's it.
But that's what these shows are all about. Very briefly, because I know time's flying by. Saturday, away at Garstang. Always tough games. I know you've been training. You were training on Tuesday. Are you training again? Are you training tonight, Brent?
Yeah, they're training tonight. Yeah. They'll be in tonight. Listen. Let's get one thing straight here. And let's go back to the football part of things instead of what we've just been talking about. Was that, if you take out, I could take out, looking at Saturday, when we started the game, right, listen, again, we were 50% light on the team that played last season.
Yeah.
The game started, and I felt for the first 30 minutes, there were nothing in either side. People were finding the way in the game. I felt the writing was on the wall a little bit, was when, and I had to do it, this is another thing that I had to do. Don't forget, Lewis Byrne, in an equal playing field, if we'd have had our team available, and I've had it available all pre-season in terms of who played last season, because of the situation that Lewis has ended up with a broken foot and been playing with a broken foot, and given the information, the instruction that had come from hospital after he's recovering from his broken foot, Lewis Byrne, in ideal circumstances, would not have played that game on Saturday. He would not have been anywhere near that game on Saturday. Right?
No.
But such is Lewis, and such a good lad he is, he put himself on the line for the benefit of the team.
Yeah.
Right? He put himself on the line. And when I say self, his body, don't forget, you've got to get people up to speed in the fitness levels and everything else. Now, whilst he's been training and doing 1v1s with our fitness coach, Ryan Russell, and working very, very hard, we still wouldn't have probably the best he could have wished for on the first match of the season would have probably been on the bench.
Yeah.
But such is must when we've got our main finisher not available. Two main finishers, two lads who contribute for not available for one reason or another. Lewis had to play now, but he started his role not as a number 9. He started his role as a number 7, and it has different responsibilities out of possession. Does that role as number 11? Has different responsibilities out of possession. And if we backtrack in that first 30 minutes, Lewis was doing, because he's been round us long enough and he knows the roles and responsibilities of it, and he was doing it to the letter of the law, basically, that role and responsibility. That's why we were under no threat in that first 30 minutes, because the players were doing, to a point, what they should have been doing out of possession. But you saw the same as I saw. 10 minutes, 15 minutes in, he was absolutely, couldn't get his second wind. He was absolutely knackered with the lad. He was goosed. Yeah. And the last thing I needed, like a hole in the head, was him to blow up and had to come off. Mm. So because of that, I swapped him with the lad playing down the middle, which was Mane. So because obviously out of possession, that role is not as demanding as the 2 7 and 11 roles.
Yeah.
So in my protection of Lewis, I swapped him. So now this is where Mane has to take on board the roles and responsibility differently to what number 9 role is.
Yeah.
Out of possession. And this is where it started to fail, because Mane not having only just come to us, even though we've drilled him and explained to him and told him, even when he's played in this position, because he has played it before, as you know, what he did, he passed him on to the fullback, his man. Now, in certain instances, he did all right, because the fullback, which was Ryan, had it covered, no problem. But that's not what we want. We don't want that situation arising, because for the reason that actually did happen on, which actually did happen on Saturday, right? And it happened. We had a writing on the wall when what had happened is, because he was passing him on to Ryan on this occasion, Ryan wasn't there to be passed in for the player to be passed on to, but he just let the player go. And if you remember, the player shot, he was free, and he shot in an empty net, in the net, but the flag, he was ruled offside. So the writing was on the wall there at that point. And it was not long after, when that ball came over again, exactly the same thing happened. Now, that again, I've got to tell you, would never have happened had Ryan Siddall, or not Ryan, if Kyle Siddall would have been on that pitch, right? Because he would have tracked him, he would have been there with him, right? Manny should have been there, and he wasn't there. And that's what, because he saw, again, you know, we've had this talk so many times, but he's a player that's come to the club, got so much potential, but you know, that's only part of football where they have potential. They've got to learn what the roles and responsibility is within the team. And that's kind of, that goal, right on half time, basically, near enough half time, kind of was a disappointing goal, because it should never have happened.
Yeah.
But we were still well and truly in the game at that point. But we've come out, what's killed us is we've come out at half time, and very quickly, I think 5 minutes in, we've conceded a stupid free kick at the edge of the box. Stupid. It wasn't there to win that ball. No. Not from the player who tried to win it, because he was wrong side. So, as you know, and I know we don't want to blame referees, but I'm not being funny. This referee had a big hand in this goal because they set it up, free kick, edge of the box, and this is what I'm saying about breaking games down. So they've taken the free kick. The referee's allowed him to take it. He's just ready to put his whistle in his mouth. He's allowed him to take the free kick. They took the free kick. It was their choice to take the free kick. They've taken the free kick. Missed.
Yeah, went over the crossbar. Yeah.
Went over the crossbar. But for some reason, he's brought it. This young kid, this is what I mean. You know, this young kid has brought it back and said, no, I didn't blow the whistle, take it again. Dave's going mad at and even the liner down our side said he's wrong there. That shouldn't be happening. And Dave's exact words were, he said, there'll be repercussions if this goes in now.
Well, it did.
And lo and behold, it did. Now, it's situations like that that gets people into trouble.
Yeah.
You know, Dave could have been in trouble. I could have been in trouble. It was bang out of order, that decision. Irrespective of anything else, he should never have done it. And this is the problem. And I feel sometimes, right, I know we don't want to get on about officials, but the trouble is that down at our level, the level we're at, unfortunately, we're all guinea pigs for the young kids because there's a shortage. The young kids have to come into the game.
They're cutting the teeth, aren't they?
They're cutting the teeth. They have to cut it somewhere. But the big problem is the stakes are high for clubs at step 6 and step 5 and step 4. Everything's high. Stakes are high. But the issue comes, they're cutting the teeth and we are getting put. If a more experienced referee was in, that situation would never have happened. So we're 2-0 down and chasing the game. That has a big difference and plays a big part. And then obviously the third goal, we get caught out trying to, you know, again, we've got a new keeper in at the back and distribution from the keeper. And it's got cut out and they finished a third one. But I'd rather take the positives because I tweaked a few things. So after when we were 3-0 down, I didn't go back and sit in the dugout and sink in my chair and scratch my head and think, what do I do now? I made positive moves, right? I just did a little tweak with Alex Meller. And then I did a little tweak with the subs that came on, which was Anthony Hall and Jack Hayward. I told them where to go, and straight away for a good 20 minutes, I thought
it was a different team performance.
Totally different. We got 2 goals, and you know, we were knocking on the door. If that game had gone much longer, I'm sure we'd have got something out of the game. And that gave me, you know, that's where we've got to look at the positives going into the Garstang game, because that 25 minutes really gives us, you know, we just looked a different side. We had with those players on the pitch, that little bit of tweaking, you know, it started to ask questions and. So we were all pleased with the last 20-25 minutes of the game. It was just a pity we couldn't get something out of it. But you know, if we analyse last season, and I'm going to say this, first match last season at home against Cleator Moor, we draw the game 2-2 with 1 point on the board. So we're kind of from the first match we're 1 point light. We've got nothing, so we're down on that. But listen, let's monitor it. Let's take it over 3 games. So that's last season over 3 matches. We kind of drew our first game at home, so we got 1 point. The second game at home, I think we played Ilkley and we got 3 points against Ilkley. So we beat Ilkley at home. So in the second game we got 4 points. But then we went into our third game, which was Bury away, and we got a point. So in the first 3 matches, we'd taken we've got 5 points on the board. So if we look at, as well as we're disappointed on Saturday to come away and out of that game with nothing, what we've got to do is look at the positives. And what we've got to try and do is get 3 points from our next 2 matches. And if we can do that, it'll be a tall order and a big ask, but it's a good challenge because we haven't got our players back. But if we can do that, we actually will be a point ahead of where we were last season. And
Brilliant.
That has got to be the challenge.
And on that note, Brent, I'll see you on Saturday, mate.
Top man, thank you.